Recently, with Modern Warfare 3 Zombies nearing its end and Gulf War on the horizon, I took the chance to step back into a more perspective look of where the zombie scene was at in its early days and where the mode is currently heading in the future. As most of you know or don't know, the zombies community has often been neglected heavily over the years and struggled through some intense droughts and deplorable DLC seasons throughout its creation. However, being compared to the booming, intense story of a campaign or action-packed, exciting multiplayer, it is often hard to come out on top and establish something that is worthwhile to the average person. But this all got me thinking, how could a mode go from what was once colossal peaks and pure content to a mode considered by most dead? What is so special and captivating about the zombies community is that unlike newer games such as Fortnite, Rainbow Six, or Apex, the player base could not rely on updates or DLC in between games or long periods of radio silence from developers. This meant that the weight of relevancy and importance was placed on those in the zombies community and is one of the reasons why I have so many fond memories associated with some of these groups. The down spiral into non-relevance can be attributed to multiple factors, and finding each and every reason pained me more and more. So join me as we take a dive into one of the most tragic stories of a community in the modern era of gaming. We begin this tragedy with the first ever game to feature zombies, World at War. Starting as a passion project by developers, Call of Duty Zombies was arguably not even supposed to be a feature in the game, and was definitely not supposed to reach the heights it would get to in the future. The early start of content creation on zombies was what you would expect. Kids recording their TV screens showcasing their highest round achievements or new secrets that they may have found on some of the maps. It is a really interesting piece of history to look back on, as the zombies content creation wouldn't have existed without the establishment of a foundation by some of these random YouTubers. The innovations made in future maps only increased gravitational movement towards the game, and eventually hype and excitement were created for this new mode. This set the stage for Black Ops 1 and its expansive take on a simple formula established in World at War. With the release of Black Ops 1 on November 9th, 2010, we saw the beginnings of what would be the zombies community on YouTube, with some of the more prominent members of the mode's history coming to rise. People such as MC Sportshawk and Mr. Raffle Waffles began their personal journeys here, and with their somewhat small success, it was proven that zombies could have an audience even compared to the likings of campaign and multiplayer. We began to see some of the most iconic moments featured in the first map alone, with Syndicate's round 115 on Kino gaining significant traction on the YouTube platform. Only increasing in popularity throughout the DLC cycle, Zombies was heading in the right direction, and on May 3rd, 2011, there would be an absolute breakthrough for the mode. Call of the Dead was released, which featured our first look at a celebrity cast, which was once again proving that Zombies had enough of an audience to feature the cast of Danny Trejo, Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michael Rooker, and Robert Englund. With the increased confidence in the mode, the quality of the maps continued to be outstanding, with insane amounts of content and passion dumped into the game, even going as far as creating skits centered around the game. An era of Call of Duty Zombies that absolutely no one will forget, Black Ops 1 planted the seeds in the World at War Foundation, which will eventually turn into a beautiful symbol later in the future. However, behind the mask of all the prosperity, the lead director of Zombies at the time had no idea where to take this story going into later games. Moon wasn't even supposed to be the final map for Black Ops 1 originally, with it originally being planned in Paris, which shows off Jimmy Zielinski's poor lack of planning for the mode. This was a symbol for darker things to come in the future, and while not knowing it at the time, the Zombies community's prosperity may be slightly halted very soon. On November 12th, 20 2012, the world was introduced to Black Ops 2 for the first time. With its insane number of new innovations with buildables and a large map, the zombies community was extremely excited to see what the mode had to offer. This led to more creators being introduced into the scene, including one of my personal inspirations, Lonely Mailbox, and the total number of people playing zombies in general grew to insane peaks. However, upon not even a week after the game's release, people began to see the hidden poor development behind transit. Buildables were scattered and often useless, lava and fog covered the map, and the bus was not a reliable source of aid across the map as many had hoped. This was made no better after the release of Die Rise, with the map's poor design being judged critically by the zombies community. As said by another YouTuber named Royal, the majority of the community was only being fueled by hating on the decisions made by Treyarch. Due to the poor reception of this game, Treyarch turned their heads for a culprit to all of the failure associated with the zombies mode in the game. And unfortunately, they turned their attention to the most prominent figure, which of course was Jimmy Zielinski, and his reputation and involvement within the studio was heavily downgraded. However, the fall of a developer leads to the rise of another, and the saving grace of zombies introduced himself in his premiere map, Mob of the Dead. Jason Blundell made the best debut map that he possibly could, with an extremely in-depth map in every single category, seamlessly crafting a masterpiece that introduced new innovations in storytelling and gameplay to create a flawless experience. Many to this day consider it to be one of, if not the best zombies maps of all time for its inventions and pure gameplay, and the praise that Jason received only heightened the barrier between him and Jimmy. In one last desperate attempt, Jimmy Zielinski developed Buried, which was another great map that increased Jimmy's reputation slightly, but was not enough to compare to that of Jason Blundell's. Jimmy Zielinski was eventually diminished enough and left the studio mysteriously in 2014. But Jason Blundell continued his extreme success with the release of Origins, which is also considered to be one of the greatest maps ever released. The prominent rise of TheSmithPlays and Mr. T Lexify also began in this era, with their late night Origins launch stream being a prominent symbol of excitement and enthusiasm within the community. It is genuinely impressive how fast the Black Ops 2 Zombies failure was flipped on its head from a singular man, and Zombies was rapidly approaching some of the best times in its history. However, there was an extreme issue approaching on the horizon. After Black Ops 2's life cycle was over, Call of Duty decided to change their game's releases from a 2-year development to a 3-year development, which meant that Zombies fans would have to wait a grueling, painful 3 years without any content until the release of the next game. With hope almost completely lost by the community, it seemed impossible to make it through the tough conditions, but as a community, they persisted. New challenges rose up, and the prominent rise of top 5 style content began its debut in the most deplorable conditions. Many creators still find ways to daily upload on their channels, and the Zombies community was all but lost. After 3 years of this style of content, on November 5th, 2015, the Zombies community enters what many consider to be the golden age of content. Tons of creators were producing content by the metric buttload, and there would never be a day without new live streams, videos, commentaries, or theories being made on the platform. The maps in this game provided a complex duality of simplicity and difficulty that encouraged both sides of the community to come together. Shadows of Evil, a complex map to understand somewhat akin to that of Mob of the Dead, saw some turn away initially. However, the second release map, The Giant, a familiar remaster of Der Riese, allowed for the community to be introduced to new features and appreciate them more on a simpler map. New innovations in Gobblegum were insane, and there were many videos made myth-busting everyone down to its finest detail. It seemed like there was no slowing down, and Treyarch just kept cooking. Der Eisendrache releases, and it absolutely takes the world by storm. The first ever boss fight features in this map, with a insanely well-crafted Easter egg and map design to coincide it. With this insane spark, Black Ops 3 Zombies was easily one of the most successful Zombies games in the span of one DLC, and someone just had to take advantage of it. And in the summer of 2016, one of the greatest content houses on the face of YouTube was created, with its passion and group being irreplaceable. MC Sporthawk, aka Matt, a early member of the community that I mentioned earlier in the video, paired up with a fellow creator he had been friends with for a while, Lonely Mailbox, aka Jack, to initiate their idea of a content house into reality. Inspired by the success of the Sidemen, Matt got in touch with the final 3 members of the group, each having developed their own online successes and interest in collaboration. Mr. T-Lexify, TheSmithPlays, and Chucky were gathered to finalize their group, and a fan meetup was eventually held to determine the success of the group. The fan meetup was a humongous success, and the group were extremely excited to move into their infamous LA house in the summer. As summer finally came and everyone began to move in, the Z house was created, and videos were made that reached unprecedented views on all 5 of their channels, all of them experiencing insane growth. Every single video was an absolute gem, with half of their content not even being associated with the zombie scene at all. Each one of their personalities blended so seamlessly together, and every single video was an absolute joy to watch. Seriously, if you have the time, go back and watch these Z House videos, because they are genuinely some of the best content I have watched on the face of the platform. With the approaching release of Gorod Krovi, the hype for the DLC was at an all-time high, and Gorod did not disappoint. Gorod Krovi was an insane hit, and combined with the Z House, this short amount of time was the best time to ever be a fan of zombies. Unfortunately, I myself never got to experience this feeling, but looking back on it, you could just feel the electric energy and hype that everyone had developed. Shortly after the release of Gorod, another significant event sprang up within the community, the first ever Easter Eggs for Charity. The community hosted event that it was. Easter Eggs for Charity was a tournament combined with some of the most influential creators in the scene, and its turnout did not disappoint. Over $100,000 was raised for charity that day, and it was all because of a silly little zombies mode. Now, if that doesn't show the insane influence this game had, I do not know what will. The Z House shortly after all dispersed, with plans of returning to see each other again next summer. And additionally, small videos were also going to be filmed later in between summers when they could all find a way to come together in one of the members' homes. With the end of the life cycle in Black Ops 3, another stalemate was on the horizon for zombies, but with the new content and events, the community was ready to take on the challenge. But wait, hold on. What was that? DLC 5? A myth regarding a DLC 5 for Black Ops 3 began surfacing, and it was rumored to contain purely zombies. A prominent YouTuber at the time, JC Backfire, goes live, and sitting next to him is a very recognizable face, Jason Blundell. After some discussion, Jason drops an absolute nuke and reveals Zombies Chronicles. 8 maps from previous games that were going to be remastered, and the community was more hype than ever before. And when it released, it did not flop at all, with the DLC being one of the most bought in PlayStation Store history. Additionally, Infinite Warfare Zombies was in its current life cycle, and the content for zombies seemed to be almost endless. Only about 3 months after the release of Zombies Chronicles, a new competitive side of zombies was shown with the first ever zombies organized tournament. Zombies World Championship, or ZWC for short, was an event mainly organized by Matt, aka MC Sporthawk, that once again featured some of the most influential creators at the time, as well as some of the best zombies players in the entire world. This event was so large that a $10,000 check would be awarded to the winner, and the turnout online and in person did not disappoint. However, all great things must come to an end. Once again, the Z House comes together again in the summer of 2017, and while the content was still being pumped out with quality, differences in the group began to develop. Members such as Matt began to think that the Z House was more of a brand, while members such as Jack saw it more as a house for YouTubers to convene in every summer while remaining independent elsewhere. This effect led many to criticize the second Z House when comparing it to the first one, as many believed the vibe to be off and the content to be minimal. And while yes, I believe in that statement, the content they were producing was generally great, and although the group group uploaded very little, it was still a enjoyable experience nonetheless. Unfortunately, I believe some of the members at the time could not see it the same and let some of the comments get to their heads. This was the final Z-House to ever happen in the present day, with Z-House 2018 being cancelled entirely for reasons regarding each member's own personal lives. However, right before the end of the summer of 2018, the long-awaited return of ZWC was in fruition. ZWC 2 launches right before the start of Black Ops 4 Zombies, and the event seemed to just be even larger and more thought out than before. Ultimately, ZWC 2 was a success, but only by a slim margin, and it seemed that ZWC was not going to be happening ever again, at least for a little bit. The decline of the Z-House leads directly into the decline of the Zombies community, and with the unfortunate timing of the release of Black Ops 4 Zombies just around the corner, it seemed to only get worse. With the high expectations associated with Black Ops 4, it was essentially doomed to fail from the start. Releasing with 4 different maps at launch, this game was filled to the brim with content that was new and completely revamped. The change of the perk system, gobblegums turned to elixirs, and the new horrible UI all combined to make a deplorable gameplay experience. Every map at launch was insanely buggy, with constant crashes happening and bugs occurring often. Many were denied first in the world for the Easter egg because they simply couldn't do it in the first place without their game crashing. But the most unfortunate thing out of all of these is its effects on the community. Out of all 5 of the members of Z-House, only a single one stayed in the zombie scene to make consistent videos about Black Ops 4 Zombies, and that was Mr. T-Lexify. Everybody else who were previously mentioned turned to their own personal goals and lives, with Jack beginning his music career and Pat moving more into a little game called Fortnite. Other members such as NoahJ456 and Mr. Dalek JD saw intense declines in viewership, and the truth was, nobody wanted to play or even watch Black Ops 4 Zombies after the bad taste it left in the mouth after launch. However, with all of these people leaving the scene, it made room for a prominent figure to rise who refused to see this community die so easily: Tim Hansen. Tim began pumping out massive heaps of content, whether it be custom zombies, gameplay, or retrospectives, and each video was entertaining and a calling back to the older community. The community from 2018 to 2020 was defined by a single guy, and Tim really did try his best to keep this game alive. With Cold War Zombies on the horizon, the community was offering Treyarch one last chance to perform, and during a pandemic as well as other issues regarding game development, it would be a difficult undertaking. Cold War released in the prime of a lockdown, with many staying at home to experience this mode. The general consensus of this mode was a positive one, and we saw a short number of people returning to the scene for a short bit, but never really stuck. I genuinely enjoy this game, and I am honestly not so sure why others don't. It is a great experience that feels like a return to classic zombies with new features. It did not help at all that Jason Blundell was released in 2020, and the mode seemed to just be distasteful to most. With the new introduction of Outbreak, the community seemed to be straying off further and further from what it once was, and the new zombies players that rose mainly focused on camo grinds and leveling up weapons. However, a completely unexpected event occurred during the life cycle of Cold War Zombies. ZWC suddenly makes its return to the scene with its biggest stage yet. Once again organized by Matt, ZWC3 was an event hosted in the HyperX Esports Arena in Las Vegas, and if you are familiar with professional gaming at all, that is a really big deal. The competition was competing for an even bigger prize pool of $30,000, and it seemed that Matt was extremely committed to making this work. Unfortunately, however, despite its huge stage and large prize pool, ZWC3 was probably the least successful out of all 3. Matt himself recently has come out with a statement regarding it in a podcast with JC Backfire, and he straight up said that ZWC3 should have never happened in the first place.
The third one shouldn't have happened. It really shouldn't have. Yeah. I was very much like, I'm never doing another one after the second one.
Upon the completion of the Cold War DLC cycle, the community was left pretty stranded and mixed, with mainly solo channels doing their own things without any sense of fellowship in the spate, despite the large event happening only months prior. Vanguard Zombies made this situation even worse, with its terrible launch, and something I can't even believe was developed by Treyarch. That's a whole separate video, but the features implemented in this mode were unnecessary and completely and utterly terrible. And now, that brings us to the present day with Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. This game had incredible potential to be a little bigger than it was, and honestly, for it not being a round-based mode, it is a pretty decent adaptation of Zombies. It is unfortunate seeing the game mode essentially being left to rot now with inconsistent updates, and the Zombies community as of now is gearing up for the highly anticipated Gulf War. The community continues to be mainly split, and we are calling for Gulf War to be a savior for the mode. The struggle that the Zombies community has to maintain its relevance is not a recent issue. In fact, it has been a continuous cycle of pain for the past couple of years or so. The building up of a strong community from World at War to Black Ops 3 with its peak in the Z House, the community was looking like it could establish a permanent solution to the problems associated with growing the community originally. However, Black Ops 4 crushed all hopes and dreams of that ever occurring, and ever since we have been in a slump for content and a never-ending drought. But please, do not take this as a completely negative video. In fact, there is still plenty of hope for a community to be built up again. It just requires new people with new sparks of energy and a great game to be built up again. Heck, I am competing with a bunch of other YouTubers in a grief tournament in about a month or so, and the community can definitely be built there. So if you would like a return to the Call of Duty Zombies community, consider subscribing because I'm not going anywhere. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.